The problem, respectfully, is that your husband is the least qualified Department of Health and Human Services head that we've had in history.
I do not.
I think that's a very dangerous.
Why is he less qualified than an economist?
I think
How is that
he
possible?
is less qualified.
He has spent his career studying toxins, studying people's health, fighting for one guy who was using Roundup for his job.
He has also spread a lot of misinformation, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, and I think it's just a very dangerous thing. I say it with the utmost respect.
Some of it's good and some of it's not. That's the point.
Listen, we all have different views here.
Yes.
And when you say, misinformation, disinformation, we could go back to COVID when...
He's connecting circumcision to autism.
May I finish?
Please.
When Fauci people were saying when you get the vaccine, you cannot transmit COVID. It will stop COVID. And that was disinformation, misinformation.
We were also still learning about it. It was a novel virus we've never encountered before.
Right.
Because now the doctors will acknowledge that
and
you
Dr.
can't.
Fauci has a medical degree.
At the time, they were censoring Bobby because Bobby said, where's the science to show us this? And there wasn't any. But people attacked him and said, you're wrong. So it's like, let's take a step back. I know that's your...
I recently found out that when you mentioned the name Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a lot of people got a lot of emotional things to say about him. And I ran into someone who had, very strong feelings about RFK, and I was like, hey, don't you think everything that RFK is doing is actually in the pursuit of some type of good? No. This is all politics. It's all political. He's not the least qualified secretary. And I'm like, wait, well, I can find examples of other secretaries of health and human services where you can question their credentials. I said, Biden's guy wasn't technically a doctor. Well, yeah, but RFK, he's the least qualified. Right. But I said, wait, but then RFK as a lawyer used to work in this. He sued big pharma, big food, right? Because they didn't provide proper evidence for safety concerns about their food and all their products, right? I'm not saying he does some good things, but cutting out the government. And I'm like, okay, that's just a preference, right? That you have a preference. You believe that things should be done in a different way. And I understand that, but to openly just assume that, right? And this is this is what I'm starting to realize about a lot of people who align with the left, is that they have very strong feelings about some of the things that, maybe Trump stands for, maybe what RFK stands for. But I don't like this idea of trying to demoralize people who believe in what RFK is trying to pursue, a healthier America, right? Oh, they didn't put an expert in there. So what? He's the one who galvanized the country on this cause. It wouldn't do right if we put someone else as HHS secretary, right? And the funny part is all these institutions only have themselves to blame because RFK asked some good questions. Hey, how come we're less healthy than we are compared to prior generations? Hey, he's right. Why are we less healthy? He's brought up alternatives. Hey, why are we not trying this? Look at Europe. Europe has less vaccines scheduled for their children than us. They deal with less of this than us. They ban certain vaccines that we allow openly here with no challenge. Why is that? And the institutions, for asking these questions, they label you an anti-vaxxer. Oh, you're kooky, crazy. And this is the character assassination that I'm talking about. That they're trying to shame and demean people who even align in some view with RFK, so that way you don't question the powers that be, the institutions who lost the trust of many Americans. And I talked about how RFK is kind of the baptism by fire in which these institutions can possibly gain back trust from the American people again, or else you're going to keep running into more RFKs of the world. And this is something that leftists and Democrats and many of these liberals don't seem to understand about the whole Maha movement. And I want to put another example. This is all from The View, by the way. Oh, and Elisa Farrah Griffin, you should have kept your promise. Where was the MAGA hat? Huh? Where was the MAGA hat? But it's not a serious point, but I digress. Let's check out this segment and then we'll get into more of the in-depth conversation they had with, I believe, RFK's wife. Let's take a look.
When you say that they are pro-vaccine, it seems as though Bobby and Trump are casting doubt on the efficacy of the vaccine, which makes Americans very nervous. So that's the problem that we're having.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. I understand that. And it's interesting because I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes just did a piece about the vaccine injury compensation program.
Yeah.
So people that have had vaccine injuries can be compensated if they can prove it. And they have paid out $5.4 billion for vaccine injuries. So my question is, can we do better?
Is that all vaccines or just the COVID vaccine?
It's all vaccines.
It's all
As far as I know. As far as I know.
Okay.
But so the question is, yes to vaccines. Yes, they are important, and they are an important part of our health care. Can we do better? Can we make them safer? Can we make them, can we listen to parents who say, my child got the vaccine and changed and stopped hitting markers, stopped developing the way they were developing? Can we listen to people when they say that instead of saying,
Yeah, but
you're crazy?
I agree with that, but you want to.
I believe she handled herself very well, RFK's wife, with, you know, people openly trying to criticize your husband, trying to like just attack him. Like, it's craziness. And she had a very candid answer. I like the way she presented the information, saying, hey, look, there's a reason why RFK is in this position. And to sit here and pretend that there's no validity to some of the things and some of the concerns that he's talking about, that it's the same thing the liberal media try to do with Donald Trump about fake news. Oh, no one was questioning the media before Donald Trump came along. Really? Really? If you look at polls, right? And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at polls. Look at polls of people's trust in news networks before Donald Trump ran around 2014, 2015. Majority of people didn't trust the mainstream media. All Donald Trump did was point out things that Americans already felt something was weird about. It's the same thing with the vaccines. Wait, you're talking about, so let me get this straight, scientist. I'm not allowed to question certain things? What? How does that make sense? I can't question and you can't provide me answers for why I have some concerns about your thing, and your product, you can't give me a substantive answer that satisfies my concern, and you still want me to go through with the process? Right. That's like going to a car salesman and ask him about the reliability of his car, and he just say, oh, you're kooky, you're crazy, there's nothing wrong with this car. Yeah, okay. But you're getting mad I'm asking questions about it. And that plays into the skepticism. Right now, the institutions, the scientific institutions, the medical institutions, the public health institutions, they don't got much of the trust that they used to have in years prior. And my argument here with RFK is this is your reestablishment period of public health, public institutions. People have these questions, give them a satisfactory answer. And I think that's the kind of the hint that RFK's wife was pointing at with the vaccine injuries. Can we do better? Can we be better informed what's causing these things, right? Not protest him by drowning a whole bunch of Tylenol and possibly putting your child at risk. Make it make sense. But this is how politicized many liberals come across, especially when it comes to the RFK issue, especially when it comes to the Maha movement. But I digress. I want to focus on this segment because I think this is one of the more, like, to me, the more eye-opening segments, right? Because I got bombarded with a bunch of questions about RFK's credentials, and I wasn't, to be fair, I wasn't, I don't research just RFK, I got other things that is more, I'm more concerned about. But this interesting point that RFK's wife brought up in this discussion, this 2-minute discussion, I think puts to bed all these concerns about RFK's qualifications. Let's get into it.
Your husband, when he announced basically that he believed he found some causal links between autism and Tylenol, it created a lot of panic in women who were being told by their OBGYNs who look at them that Tylenol, if necessary to treat pain during pregnancy, is safe. What would you say, and I know you're not a medical professional, but to women who now feel anxious and nervous because their doctor's telling them one thing, but the top public health professional is telling them something very different?
So, before we go into her answer, my answer here is that 2017, Tylenol made it known that pregnant women shouldn't be taking their products. 2017, right? That's before RFK, right? That's before Joe Biden, right? 2017, Tylenol said that. right? And now this concern, I don't see that online. I just saw a bunch of pregnant women taking a bunch of Tylenol to the point of getting kidney failure and killing their child and possibly dying with their child. That's how much Tylenol a liberal woman, a pregnant liberal woman did online. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. For what? For over what? Your life of your child means that little to you over politics, like emotional politics? And this is why I've been saying that for the left, they treat politics almost like a religion. I'm sorry. And it only applies to the left. You can't apply it to the right. The right has things more than politics. I don't go around talking about politics all my life. I talk about my family. I talk about other things. I only talk about politics when I'm in this room by myself talking to this camera for you guys. That's the only time I talk about politics. But in my own personal life, I don't try to bring it up. Unless someone confronts me or asks my opinion about something, I let it known. But those conversations don't happen often. And when they do happen, I get some insight. Oh, okay, it's interesting. Okay, this is how people are seeing what's going on. How about this? And this is the problem that I think a lot of the left run themselves ragged over, because it's hard to take our guys' criticisms as valid concerns when we just saw you got a directive from public health and not even considering the validity. Like, I believe liberals never ask themselves this question. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong about this Tylenol thing? What if I'm wrong about RFK? I just drowned in Tylenol that could possibly harm my child just to get some likes on TikTok from a bunch of strangers I don't even know. But my child, who I'm gonna have to live with the consequences of my actions that could or could not contribute to the health of this child, I'm doing something that's possibly detrimental to that child. And you want us to take your criticism seriously? Hey, whatever. Let's get into it.
Well, they said consult your doctor before taking it. That's what they were saying, and that holds. So I agree. Listen, I've been pregnant. I understand it's stressful being pregnant. I found, because you're so concerned with everything. I didn't drink caffeine when I was pregnant. So to say, hey, consult your doctor before you take this, I agree with that, and I think that's okay for moms to hear.
Cheryl?
Yeah, go ahead.
Now,
all right.
I am. This is not your fight, really, to be fighting.
Yeah.
This is your husband's fight.
Thank you for acknowledging that. But go ahead. But hear what we're talking about.
I do want to say, he's not a doctor and he's not a professional.
Yes.
And oftentimes when he's talking,
And this is the cheap clap of the century, right? The cheapest clap of the century. Because my question will be, where was all this concern for Biden's health, public health secretary, whatever, HHS secretary? He's a lawyer. He was a lawyer. Pedro something. I'm sorry. His name is not Pedro, but I just, he wasn't a doctor either. But there was none of this concern because he was doing what was expected of him, right? They didn't have people using their positions for political reasons. And this is the fallacy of authority that I call out a lot of people who criticize RFK about his credential. I said, this is a form of credentialism. You're using credentials as a gatekeep, and people who happen to have the credentials, who may lean towards a certain political persuasion, is pushing out a narrative, and you believe their narrative because of the fact that they have a piece of paper, they have a fancy title next to their name, right? And that's the fallacy of authority. And I call this out a lot for people who demand credentials from RFK, because that's my main talking point. Just because someone in authority, Fauci, says something, you don't believe it to be true. And that's usually my way to kind of push back against this concern about RFK's credentials. But what RFK's wife is about to drop in the next minute opened my eyes to a whole new can of worms. But, enough suspense. Let's get into it.
Times when he is speaking not with the best information that we can get, because, we could do a lot better with health stuff. And there's a lot of stuff he can do. And some of the things he's suggested, take it out of the hands of my doctor and me and my OBGYN and me. And I wonder, does it give you pause, and are you able to say, that might not actually be so, because I've got my experience and I've lived with this, and I'm still here. So are you able to have those conversations with her?
I am able to have those conversations. And just to be clear, 90% of secretaries of HHS have not been doctors.
But they've had a
There
science
have been
background.
3.
Yeah.
No, to be
You know
honest,
what? One of Obama's secretaries of HHS was an economist.
But
So
the majority of them that haven't had medical backgrounds have
Oh,
had
wait.
a science
Wait,
background.
don't
which
do
our husband
anything
doesn't
else.
have either.
Don't say anything else yet.
Because the argument goes, okay, if you're so concerned about credentials for the HSX secretary, and this is where the motives of the Democrats, the motives of the liberals get called into question. 90% of the time, this happened that a non-doctor became HHS secretary, but all of a sudden you worried about RFK being HHS secretary, and they worked in the sciences. What? Economist is not biologist, okay? Economist is not health, okay? Being a lawyer is not health, okay? But a lawyer guy, right? RFK dealt with, challenging the studies, won lawsuits against big food, big pharma, right? Monsanto's, I forgot which one. There was a big one that he won that he proved something using data, referencing other people. You telling me he's not qualified at all for the HSX secretary, where we're challenging the standards, we're challenging how some of these public health institutions come with their conclusions about certain things that are prescribed to Americans, looking at the outcomes that are being provided by public health to people. He challenged Fauci. That's why I opened up the video with that story from his wife talking about how she challenged Fauci. He challenged Fauci. Hey, Fauci, what's the evidence for this suggesting that getting the vaccine for COVID makes you immune to COVID, makes you unable to pass it on to other people? Fauci couldn't provide the evidence. And you don't think he's not qualified for HSS? Come on. If you're not mad about the 10%, right? Sorry, if you're not mad about the 90% that weren't doctors being in this position, why are you mad right now? Makes you guys look very political. And this is the problem. This is the problem I have with leftists. It's hard to take you guys genuinely or honestly because you guys don't prescribe to principles. You prescribe to political tribalism. That's the reality. Because if you're an unqualified person, right, we're going to go with their argument, they're not a doctor. Okay, you're an unqualified person who's not a doctor became HSS secretary. You ain't worried about it. You're not concerned about it. But when your political opposition is, now it's a problem. Picking and choosing. The liberal double standard. When my guy do it, give him a chance. He's bringing something, a new, fresh perspective to the position. But when your opponents do it, when your rivals do it, they're spreading misinformation. This is evil. This is bad. You're wrecking our country. You're wrecking our health. Like health wasn't being wrecked decades ago. Like we ain't seeing obesity rate at some of its highest rates in this country. Make it make sense. Life expectancy was going down, I believe. We have the lowest life expectancy in the world. But you bragging about our public health. You think that it's crazy for Americans to have some concerns and some doubts about public health and wanting someone who represent that doubt to be in some position of power to hold these public interests, these public health interests, who might have economic conflicts of interest, political conflicts of interest, and personal conflict of interest. We all complain about the revolving door. You work for this healthcare company and then you're now in the government administrating public health. That's not a conflict of interest? Y'all say the same thing about, what's her name? Nikki Haley, right? You finish, starting a war and then you're on the board of some Boeing company and now you're going to come into the government? No conflict of interest there? This is what I'm talking about, right? Democrats going out here trying to castigate this man as some crazy, loony person who don't deserve his position, right? He's not sentient. He's not cognitive at all. But they get paid billions of dollars from these pharmaceutical companies. I wonder why. These news networks, advertisement being paid by the billions by these pharmaceutical companies. And you don't have any concerns about possible conflict of interest for their adamant defense of vaccines and other medical products that might be scrutinized by RFK? You don't think they have a financial, political interest to try to demonize RFK, try to make him seem like he's the most unqualified HSX secretary in history? When at least when he was doing lawyer work, it was based in these healthcare disputes and concerns. But yeah, he has no qualifications. They just don't want to give the guy any credit because they don't want to give him any inch of legitimacy because it hurts their narrative. And I say they're doing all this to protect their own personal conflict of interest, their own personal political and economic interest. The political, this narrative, because he was a Democrat, they lost him. They don't like the optics of that. They have to call him something else. Oh, you're just living off the Kennedy name. Yeah, okay. But I digress. I think RFK's wife did a good job defending him, pointing out some of the inconsistencies with the outrage and the fear mongering and the anxiety being projected by the left. And this is some of the stuff that always catch Democrats slipping. But I digress. Let me know your thoughts and perspective in the comments section below. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please share this video if you feel so inclined. It really does help me on the algorithm. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.